All right, our next inductee. You know, when it comes to basketball, one of the things I love about sports and working in sports, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a sports broadcaster. All you got to be is a sports fan. You just argue all the time. Who's better, my team, your team, this player, that player? People debate to this day constantly. Is Michael Jordan better than LeBron James? Who's the greatest of all time? Maybe it was Kareem. I don't know. I go with MJ, but you know, I know it's probably an unpopular opinion here in the Cleveland area. But one thing that is not debatable is the first dominant player in pro basketball history was a proud Croatian. George Mikan was 6'10", and although that's average by today's standards, when George Mikan played pro basketball, he was a giant. Guys were 5'8", 5'9", 5'10". He was 6'8", 10 inches taller than everybody else. He dominated in the 40s and 50s. He was a three-time All-American at DePaul, led him to back-to-back NIT championships, which back then was the equivalent of the NCAA tournament. Player of the year. He turned pro, played in the NBL, which was a predecessor to the NBA. He won 2 titles there in the scoring championship. Then he went on to the Minneapolis Lakers before they moved to LA. And he proceeded to win 5 more world championships and a couple of more scoring titles. If you looked him up, his records are ridiculous in the history of pro basketball. Suffice it to say that he was not only named to the NBA's 25th anniversary team, then to the 50th anniversary team, then the 75th anniversary team. He was named the best basketball player in the first half century of pro basketball in this country. He was that dominant. Now he's a proud Croatian man. He's no longer with us, obviously. His grandparents emigrated, and he was just such a special player that rules had to be changed because he was so dominant. And he now, if you look at every basketball team from high school to college to the pros, everybody has a big man. Nobody had a big man until George Mikan came. He literally changed the sport of basketball the way Babe Ruth changed the sport of baseball. He was a man so far ahead of his time. George Mikan went on to be inducted into the College and Pro Basketball Halls of Fame. And tonight, George Mikan is one of our original 10 inductees into the National Croatian Sports Hall of Fame. You know, as a sports fan growing up, and then I lived in LA for 4 years, and I would go out there to Staples all the time, and they have all those numbers retired in the rafters. It's pretty special. And back when Mikan and those guys played, they didn't have numbers. So he is on a list up there, and I've always was curious how many people knew about George Mikan. And in my line of work, I did a lot of research there over my years, and I thought to myself, man, he's one of those guys that I really wish I would have seen play, because we saw so many big men dominate. Kareem with the skyhook, Shaq with his just sheer size. But this guy was just so ahead of his time, absolutely amazing.